And we're back, baby! Yeah!
You know it!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 90s, guys. My name's Judd, and back with us again one more time is
Becca.
And so she's filling in for Brian for us. We've done 2 out of the 3 topics that I asked her to pick. We did baseball and baseball movies and just kind of Cardinals in the 90s. We did Lisa Frank, which was huge in the 90s. And the last one I'm going to let her tell you about is
The Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
The Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Oh, yes.
If you don't like this episode, then I don't think you'll ever like any of the 90s guys
you
episodes.
should just not
Yeah,
listen to
exactly.
this anymore.
This was one of the best sitcoms, TV shows, whatever you want to call it, of the 90s. You got Carlton. You got Uncle Phil. You got 2 Aunt Vivians. You got Jazzy J.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the 2 sisters, which were...
Nikki, the younger one.
What was this?
And
Shoot. The ditzy one. I can't... I want to say Karen, but it's not Karen. Karen's no.
It's not.
What was her name?
See, now you got me stuck, too.
I can't believe...
So Nikki was the younger one, and she had a lot of different actresses.
No, Nikki was the...
Was she?
No, Nikki was the little boy that they had later on. Nikki was the son that they had after...
And who's this younger
The
sister?
2 sisters, yeah. I'll get them here.
Okay, see, now we don't even know what we're talking about.
Oh, we know what we're talking about.
I will say, so while we're looking that up, because we clearly didn't do our research ahead of time, so the theme song, which is, of course, when someone says Fresh Prince of Bel Air, everyone wants to start singing. I cannot
Do you know it? Do you know the whole song?
I know the whole song, yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, every word.
Yeah.
That was actually written by Will Smith, so he wrote it and then he performed it like under his...
Hillary and Ashley.
Hillary and Ashley.
Nikki,
Why did they name it
Nikki
Okay.
was the little boy
Okay.
that they had before the show ended.
Okay. That's maybe what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hillary. Yeah, why did I think of Hillary? That was like...
I don't know why I thought Karen.
Yeah, you said it and I was like, oh yeah, Hillary, that makes sense. But yeah, Will Smith wrote the theme song and he used to like perform it because he was still in his like singing career.
Really? I didn't know that was actually on his album.
This was one of his, I don't know if it was on an album, but he would sing it like at concerts.
Okay.
Because he had written it. And he, this show was actually what launched his like acting career. He really didn't act at all before this show.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, I did do this part of the research. The writers of the show had to pull teeth to get him to come in. Like he didn't want to do it, but his singing career wasn't going as far as he wanted it to, and so they really had to like convince him, just come in and just see what happens. Just come read these lines. Like please just show up. Like you're already in town. Come see us.
Right. You're doing a gig. Just come on in. Yeah.
Like drag him in to do the audition. To when he got the part, he was the first person they cast for the show.
Yeah, I know he was like in charge of the show for the most part. That's kind of why there was 2 Aunt Vivians because
and she changed like literally halfway through. It was 6 seasons long, and changed after season 3.
And then of course Jeffrey the butler,
who was like the best.
Yes, smart ass, just whatever. Oh, yeah, I love Jeffrey.
Yeah.
No, if you want to talk about a show, this show had every range. Like
Everything.
It was super, super, super funny, and then you got like one of the saddest scenes in any TV show ever.
Yeah.
Was a part of this thing. It's like, and I still to this day watch that scene on YouTube and still cry.
Well, and you have a little bit of an identity with it.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I like as an adult I can watch it and cry. As a kid, I didn't get it because it was not something I like. Things like that weren't part of my experience in life. But yeah, so it definitely,
If you don't know what we're talking about Will's dad comes back and wants to be a part of Will's life, and then just kind of up and leaves. Abandons him again.
Yeah.
And so, and the one thing that kind of frustrated me about that scene though is because Will's like, I don't need anybody. I've never had anybody, whatever.
Yeah.
He had Uncle Phil. Yeah, Uncle Phil and him did not.
Right.
They butted heads. But Uncle Phil loved that kid.
I think that was just his way of, because if you as the scene continues, he really gets down to what's really going on in Will's mind, which is why was I not good enough? Why did he leave me?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that he didn't think he needed anybody. It was like his coping mechanism was, well, fine. If he doesn't want me, then I don't need him or anybody else.
Right.
It's like his way of, we talk about the trauma that people have in their lives and the way that they deal with it, and that was how he coped. Like, that was how the character coped. It was just something like, I will just do my own thing, and I don't need anybody, because if you're just going to leave me, then fine, I won't be attached.
Right, yeah.
And when he turns Uncle Phil, and it's like, why didn't he want me?
Well, then the other thing is Uncle Phil just sat there and took it, let him do it, too, that's being a dad.
Right.
I mean, that's being a legit father, is just... you get to vent, you get your emotions out, and then when you're ready, I'm going to give you a hug.
I'm going to tell you what's up, and I'm going to tell you that, it's all good.
But then the other thing I got to talk about when it comes to this is the different outfits that he wore in this show.
It was
my
so
goodness.
90s. Like,
it was.
And if you want to know what 90s fashion looked like,
watch the first 3 seasons of Fresh Prince.
Yeah, because it started in 1990 through 1996 is when the show ran. So it literally is, it catches a little bit of the tail end of the 80s with the fashion, but man, it really does all kinds of crazy.
Well, then and he's going to prep school and he's wearing his jacket inside out and and the weird colored hats, like neon was huge in the early 90s. He was wearing neon pink shirts, neon green pants, stuff like that, neon green hats, neon yellow, all that stuff. So straight up, which I never got. Of course I was a part of that because I wore that stuff, but I never, and I was like, looking back at it now, I'm like, why? Yeah, why did we do this? This was cool. Why was neon colors so awesome? To wear.
Why was it a thing? I don't know. We just did it.
Because everybody wanted the black sunglasses with the neon colored sides. Yeah.
I know, kids wear them now still too.
Yeah.
They're even out still.
And they're so cheap. They're $5 a pair.
If even that much, like a dollar store. Yeah. Yeah. What I found interesting about that show, of course, looking back at it as an adult, is that it was the only show that really showcased rich black people.
Yes.
There were so many shows. Most sitcoms were middle class or upper middle class white families. That's almost every sitcom we watched. And if that wasn't your demographic, you didn't, you wouldn't see yourself on TV. But it was that dichotomy of the poor kid from the suburbs and this rich, well-to-do black family that you just didn't see on TV.
Yeah, and I mean the other aspect of it is what they touched in it too. It's I think. I don't think white people realized what black people had to deal with and stuff like that. Because they touched on everything. They touched on hardcore drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the worst one they talked about was when I was a kid. I can remember was Saved by the Bell with caffeine pills.
Yeah, with the pills. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so excited.
Right.
But,
it was a totally
they talked about
thing.
Cocaine and stuff on Fresh Prince of Bel Air,
which
was a big thing in the 90s. Especially 80s and early 90s.
Yeah. They hit on the drinking, they hit on drunk driving, they talked about drugs.
Police dealing with black people.
And I think that, when you think about you think about rich people just in general, they don't deal with the same things everybody else deals with. Well, even a really affluent black family is being portrayed on TV, you can see that they still deal with the same crap that everybody else deals with. They weren't special just because they were rich. They still had to deal with, prejudice, and they had to deal with, all those kind of things that everyone else had to deal with. They just happened to have money, but it didn't help them with all those problems.
Which the funny thing, the thing I find fascinating, and especially with what's going on in the world now. When I was a kid, growing up, my mom, and I think Brian and I have touched on this a little bit. My mom taught us not to see skin color. So when we were in middle school and we had the 8th grade dance. Do you remember Joe Lowe and Fidel Noel, right? Fidel Noel or whatever. Or Noel.
I think so, yeah.
They were city kids.
Yeah.
And we had the 8th grade dance, and they weren't going to be able to go unless they could stay out in the county.
Yeah,
of course, they crashed at my house the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Because my mom was like, we don't care. If it's something that is supposed to involve all the students,
then it should involve.
It should involve all the students, and so and I was talking to somebody my best friend in elementary school was a black kid named Jeffrey Harris, and I never realized he was black until I got older.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's so weird, but then looking back, my brother John and I talk about the shows we watched. Our favorite shows, for the most part, were like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, of
Yeah.
course, and Family Matters,
Yeah.
The Parenthood, which not a lot of people know about, but it's about a black family in Chicago, and one of the best people in it is his name was Wendell in the TV show, and he was the black guy from Elf, the fat black guy from Elf, and his name was Wendell, and he was hilarious. It's on Channel 11. I'm pretty sure it's Channel 11, but
Go back and look. I don't
we
remember
watched like all the black sitcoms and stuff like that, and didn't even think anything of it. We just thought it's another show on TV that was hilarious.
Yeah, same with us. Before we moved out here in the suburbs, I grew up in the city. Like we lived in South City. My mom went to school there. All of my aunts and uncles did. Like we lived in neighborhoods. My grandma still lives there. We're very, very diverse neighborhoods. And so again, same thing. Like there was never any racist talk in my family or in my house. And even though I was still fairly young when we moved out here, I didn't have any problem being, it didn't even occur to me not to have a problem with anyone in my school for any reason. It
wasn't really till high school at Eureka, because there were some people at Eureka High School that were
still some people.
But we had. That I didn't even know. And the weird thing was, I dealt with racism and I should say racial slurs in the opposite way, because I was the one that got called a cracker and a honky and I was not a fan of that. Yeah, but at the same time, but it's like I didn't even realize anything about race really until high school. I didn't even really care. Like I didn't think about it.
Yeah, one of my good friends in elementary school. So I had. As you know, I have lots of little small groups of friends that maybe aren't friends with each other, but I'm friends with them. That's
what I was too, though.
That's how my life is always been. Same, as we know. But one of those groups of friends in elementary school included my friend Josh, and I remember he was one of my, even when we got to high school and he didn't go to Eureka anymore, we still wrote letters, we were pen pals, and we would mail each other Christmas presents.
Oh, nice!
And it's something that never occurred to me. I have a puzzle that he gave me, and because I'm a big nerd, but I have a puzzle he gave me in high school, because he mailed it to me as a Christmas present one year. Right. Because it never occurred, those things that just wouldn't occur to us to think about, because we weren't raised in families where race was ever an issue. Yeah. Now, granted, we can look back and see where we may have had, biases that we didn't think about, but
right.
But I remember even watching, I just love sitcoms. When I watched TV, I didn't care what the sitcom was,
exactly.
or what it was about, or if it applied to me or not. I would watch Living Single.
That was another one.
I'm freaking 12. What do we watch?
Different World, all that stuff.
Watching all these shows.
Yeah. Because I remember when I was a kid. Yeah. Different World was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, because I wanted the flip-up sunglasses like he had. Yeah. I thought those were the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And yet again, it had nothing to do with the fact that he was black. I liked his character.
I also watched I Love Lucy, which again, not even a
right,
kid show.
Exactly, right.
It was a sitcom, and
but that was one of the greatest things about Fresh Prince, is it was a black sitcom that it didn't matter. Yeah. It didn't matter that all these people were black in the show. Mm-hmm. It was just a show that everybody liked.
Right. And it portrayed, like you said, it portrayed all the different things people were kind of going through from a different perspective, I think, than a lot of people would have thought about. Especially white people watching TV maybe wouldn't have thought about things like, even within the black community, there's prejudice against each other. With the rich people thinking differently of the poor people, and that you get some of that kind of clashing going on. So there's definitely a lot of complexity to the show. For it being as fun and silly as it was sometimes, it definitely had a lot.
There's a lot of deepness in it, yeah. And the whole aspect of, later on when his mom moves out and gets remarried and all that stuff. And I don't think Will was a big fan of who his stepdad would have been. Mm-hmm. Come to find out, he was beating her and stuff like that. And I remember, they dealt with a lot of issues.
All kinds of stuff. And that show was fun because they also had a lot of guest stars on it.
Oh yeah.
So when I was looking at the stuff online, I was like, I didn't realize this many people were on this show at one point in time. And then there were people that played themselves. They were celebrities that would show up here and there. Queen Latifah, Vander Holyfield, kind of people that were popular. Yeah. But then even I think it was the first time I ever saw Jaleel White as not Urkel. Because he was on that show, he was Ashley's boyfriend, and he was but he was not the Urkel. And I was isn't that hold on, that's not how he is in real life. When you're
because you grew up as Urkel, and then when they brought him in as Stefan in Family Matters, it was
and you're
what's going on here? And every girl was oh my goodness, he is kind of cute. Yeah, that was. I remember Urkel went from being the biggest nerd to being a heartthrob in one episode.
Yeah. like,
Yeah.
man,
I
he
was-
is cute. Like, hold on, like let me rethink my whole entire life.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because
that
Ursula
was
is not
hilarious.
supposed to look like that.
Yeah. But going back to Queen Latifah,
Yeah.
that one was a great episode because, you know, especially now with everybody's talking about body shaming and whatever, Queen Latifah is a full-figured lady.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say that she's fat by any means, but she is a thicker lady. And it kind of, at first, Will was kind of a jerk to her. And then he got to know her.
Yeah.
And then he actually really cared for her. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a fantastic way to tell people, listen, beauty is only so far.
Yeah.
You need to get to know somebody before you judge them.
Right.
You know, and I mean, and of course, some people are just gonna be like, whatever. You know,
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I remember some of my friends, some of the girls that even I dated were not the most attractive, weren't the skinniest, weren't this, and it had nothing to do with how they looked. It was who they were as a person. That's what I cared about more than what it was. So, and I mean, that kind of goes to that, and I love that episode of that because of that. It's like Will kind of gets smacked in the face, and is like. Yeah. He thinks he's all this tough and whatever and sly, and then kind of gets put in his place and realizes that she's a really nice person and he has fun with her and all that stuff, and he needs to not care about what other people think.
Right. Well, and considering, you know, when you look at Hillary, who was always worried about what people thought.
Right.
Like, that was like her thing. Like, if people don't think a certain way about me, then my life is over.
Right.
And so she had a whole different dynamic, like on the other side going on, where she cared too much about what people thought about her.
I will tell you, though, my first crush, celebrity crush, whatever, was Ashley Banks.
Oh, yeah? She was cute.
Oh, my goodness. And as she got older, she just got cuter and cuter.
True.
Oh, my goodness. And everybody's like, she's a black. I was like, I don't care. She's beautiful.
She's cute.
Yeah. So
true.
I just remember that. It's like, I was like, I kind of like her. You know, so.
Yeah.
But, and Hillary herself, and she's aged very well, too, as the lady who played Hillary.
Yeah.
But I got to ask you, were you a Mrs. Banks 1 or Mrs. Banks 2? Which one did you like more?
I don't know. So I think like I noticed, of course, when she changed, I was like, that's not the same person. But I don't know that I really like ever cared enough to judge. Really? One of them, you know, like which one I liked better or worse. I might have to go with number 2.
Okay, that's
because
mine too.
I feel like her character development maybe was something that I liked better than the first one maybe.
The funny thing is it's so funny how different they were. Mm-hmm. Like you go into it and Vivian 1 was very outspoken, very whatever, and but then when they replaced her with the second mother, she was very reserved and very like level-headed, and she made Will think.
Yeah, she was more than just like, oh, that mom character.
Yeah.
She had more
depth.
Yeah, she had more going on. She had a better character.
And then on top of that, I mean, they brought in with the pregnancy, which was funny because it started with the first Vivian. Yeah. She was pregnant, and then she had the baby. And the best line was Jazzy Jeff coming in and saying, wow, you changed after the pregnancy a lot, because she shrank and
I love when shows acknowledge that something has changed. Like that cracks me up. It's like you break that fourth wall with the audience, and you're terms.
Yeah.
And it's like now that you've told the audience, you're acknowledging what's the elephant in the room.
Right.
She looks different, but I love it when the shows will actually acknowledge that. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite thing.
So and then, but of course, everybody's favorite was Carlton.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about the whitest black person in the world.
He was so great.
I mean, I had a buddy named Greg that could do the dance, the Carlton dance, and he would do it all the time, and I absolutely... fact he loved Barry Manilow. The fact that he was obsessed with
he had the weirdest quirks. I went to college with a guy named Chris, who I was still good friends with, and he had a very similar like look about him as Carlton. Same skin tone, same like general build. He was built a slightly different, but similar. Yeah. Same kind of shaped face. Like the whole, like he looked a lot like he got it all the time.
Yeah.
He looked like Carlton Banks. Matter of fact, at one point his Facebook name was like, I am not Carlton Banks. Or something something silly like that. Or he called it like, not the real Carlton Banks. Or like he played it up for a long time. He doesn't look like that anymore, but he did for a long time. But yeah, in the same kind of quirkiness. So I like had my own little Carlton Banks in college. Because like just quirky. He was just so like. He was not the stereotype that you wanted him to be. You know, like
right.
You wanted him to be some preppy rich, kid who he was in some respects, but he was also such a nerd at the same time. Yes. But not in like a classical nerd way.
No.
He was like a nerd in the weirdest ways to be a nerd. And I thought like I liked it because he wasn't your stereotype of any box you wanted to put him in. He didn't. He did not fit in that box.
Well, even Uncle Carl or Uncle Phil didn't either.
Well, yeah.
If you look at him, I mean, and a well-respected judge, as he should have been.
Yeah.
But he, you would not expect that kind of character. I mean, you could tell that the actor that played Uncle Phil was a theater person. Mm-hmm. Because of the way he played that, and nothing against his acting, he was fantastic as Uncle Phil. But especially in the first, he seemed very proper and very, because the actor that played the Uncle Phil was legit. Like I think he went to one of the highest acting schools you can go to, and was a theater guy before he got this. And I think this was really his first role that wasn't on stage, and you could tell by in the beginning of the show that he was very new and still had the same theater because he was very theatrical and whatever. But as he grew, Uncle Phil grew, and it became, who does not want an Uncle Phil in their life?
Right.
I mean, seriously, somebody that was willing to take in his wife's sister's kid who was a troublemaker and no good, heading down the wrong road, and then pretty much just raise him himself. No questions asked. He went ahead and did. And on top of that, all that he did for Will. Yeah. I mean, and like we talked about with the episode with them, whatever, and really becoming a father to Phil. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that the group as a whole, all these actors that were a part of the show are different because of this show. Yeah. I think Will Smith is a fantastic father, and I think part of that has to deal with the show itself,
which the lessons he learned
from being, and that's the other thing that you can take from it is you got to realize that Ashley, Hillary, Will, and Carlton, they were still somewhat kids. Yeah. I mean, they probably I know Ashley was a teenager. Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's like 2 years older than us. She's not, but Carlton was probably in his late teens, early 20s. Oh, he might have been. I think he was actually older.
He might have been mid-20s.
Yeah, but Will Smith was, like 20, 19 or 20 when it came out, and Hillary was around the same age. Yeah. So they were still kids. Yeah. So they grew up. I mean, they were past the child actor. Adults, yeah. Really, yeah. So, but it's fantastic to see that. And on top of that, to see that Jada and Will's relationship, that they're still married. Mm-hmm. It's hard enough for a white couple in Hollywood to stay married, let alone a black couple that has all this stuff going against them just because of their skin tone, which is wrong. Right. Staying together like they are. So, I mean, I think that speaks to how they grew up in that situation. Yeah. Because they met when Will was doing the show. Jada and Will did. Yeah. So that's crazy to me to think that.
So I can think about how long that's been. Like,
geez, it was so long ago. The fact that when the actor that played Uncle Phil passed away, it made national news. Yeah. That should tell you what kind of show this is.
Right. Such a good show in so many ways.
I really want to watch it now.
I know, right? Yeah. It was so good. It's been a long time since I've really gone back and revisited like the series as a whole. Yeah. That'd be a good one to go back and kind of rewatch and relive like all the moments. But yeah, loved it. Yeah. So like we said, if you don't like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, then you're probably not gonna like this show at all. And Get Out. Get Out. It's in my top 5 of all, especially 90s shows. It's up there. It's just if I narrow down to just the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, 90. It
definitely falls in the top.
I was gonna say if we go over everything, Scrubs is my all-time favorite, and Psych is right underneath it.
Psych is up there. Boy Meets World, which you guys talked about and Totally Killed. I'm killed in a bad way. You didn't do it so good.
No, I know you were mad. You were mad.
It's like you should have just had me over.
You got to realize that.
I'll have to revisit that one.
Yeah, no, I will.
We'll have to fill in some of those gaps. Boy Meets World is up there in my top for sure.
The fact that the redhead from there is a porn star now, is that what you want to bring in?
There's all kinds of things that we could bring in and talk about.
Yeah. But House Topanga is still hot.
Topanga's freaking awesome.
I was upset Sorry, we're going off
I
topic
know,
again.
totally off topic, right?
I was really upset that they canceled Girl Meets World already.
I know, me too.
I really liked it.
This was going okay. Like, why are you killing it now?
Because Disney has like a 3-year rule. They won't do a show for longer than 3 years now, which is stupid.
Yeah, now we're really off topic. This is what me and Jen do. Like, we get together and hang out, and we talk in circles, and we go off on all kinds of tangents.
We do.
This is how we communicate. This is how we roll.
Anyway, well, let's wrap this up because we're going to keep going in different directions. Yeah. So thank you, Becca, for coming in and filling in for these 3 episodes. Yeah. Thank you for the topics. They got better. I just, like I said, Fresh Prince, we had to do this one last because by far one of the best 90s sitcoms out there. Yeah. And there's a lot of 90s sitcoms that actually were good. Yeah. So thank you very much. If you want to, you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Email us. If you have a topic you want us to talk about, send us an email. It's the90sguyspodcast@gmail.com. Just shoot us an email. Say, hey, I really liked this show from the 90s. Could you please talk about it? We'll be happy to do that. And we'll throw you a little shout out too. And then we have our Patreon. Still looking for supporters. Every little bit helps. Everything's going straight back into the podcast. We're working on getting new cameras and a new computer to help us edit and record. And merch. Our merch link is on our Facebook page. So just hit us up. Thank you for watching, and you have a great day.